I reviewed a range of keyboards here on my YouTube channel, and I've decided I think it'd be a good idea to rank them all. I'm Techify, and this is my keyboard tier list for 2022. So guys, let's get into this. I'll link the tier list template down below. You can go fill it in for yourself, then join the Techify Discord and send me a screenshot of how you'd rank these keyboards. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. So I'm going to jump right into it so this video doesn't get too long. We've got 13 keyboards to get with, and I'm going to do them in the order that I reviewed them. So the first one was the RK61. This was one of the earlier reviews on my channel, and I think for its price it is really good. Obviously it's got a lot to be desired, and there's an RGB version now for pretty much the same price. So for that, this is going to have to either be an A or an S tier, and I don't think many of these keyboards are going to be S tier, and on a value for money perspective, I'm going to put it up there. I think this is a really great entry into mechanical keyboards for a really low price. The Apex 5, the SteelSeries Apex 5 was a really good keyboard. It is quite expensive, but actually when you consider what it is, a full-size keyboard with some really nice RGB, a wrist rest, and the kind of pointless but fancy screen, I do think it is actually not terrible value for money, and it was a really nice keyboard to use. The only annoying thing was, I guess, their hybrid switches. Whatever SteelSeries half membrane clicky, half weird switch. I don't know, maybe I didn't have a problem with it, and it felt mechanical enough to me, so I'm going to put it in A tier. I actually really enjoyed using it, and I kind of wish I didn't get rid of it. The Razer Synosa V2 is a membrane keyboard. It looked really cool, survived me doing a splash test, and I do think it was a pretty good keyboard, and it's not mechanical, and people do want that. But I think $60 as I paid for it, at least at the time, it's probably a lot cheaper now, but $60 for a membrane keyboard, I just think is too much. That being said, I do think it was actually quite a good, well-built keyboard, and I think I'm going to put it in B tier for that reason. I just don't think you can justify, personally, I couldn't justify spending that much money on a membrane keyboard. But if you want that, I guess that's kind of like one of the best ones you can get as such. The Blitzwolf BWKB1, I remember being pretty cheap. It was just a little bit of a step above the RK61. There are lots and lots of random keyboards in this sort of price range doing this sort of thing, so it's nothing particularly special, but I do think it's just a nice 60% way to get into mechanical keyboards again. This one actually had Gator-on switches, whereas the RK61 had its own Royal Clutch switches. I do think this is a pretty good keyboard, but I think we've got to be harsh here, and I don't think I can really put this in A tier. I just don't think it's not special enough to me. I think there's so many keyboards for that $40-50 price range where you can just get a mechanical keyboard. The Gamma K66 is an interesting one. I believe you can get it in Hotswap, and mine wasn't, so I actually broke mine because I was like, everyone's telling me it's Hotswap, and I tried to pull a switch out and ripped it off, and there we go. But it kind of looked cool, but it also kind of didn't. It was just kind of like a keyboard, and then the outside was just some sheets of acrylic like mushed together, and then some RGB. If you like the look of it, then I think it's a decent keyboard. But I think for its price, I just thought it looked a bit tacky. I know I gave it a positive review, and it is a good keyboard, and I did enjoy using it, but unless you like the look, I'm going to be honest, in hindsight, I'm going to put it in C tier. The Motospeed CK62 is yet another 60% mechanical keyboard I reviewed. However, the one I reviewed had whatever you call them, Altimu switches, and I remember saying it was alright in the video. However, I believe I let someone else use this keyboard for a while, and after not that long, the switches became dodgy. Like the W key would only work at a certain angle, and that's terrible. I mean, they're not renowned for being great switches, so I think this is going to have to be a C or D tier keyboard as well. I'm going to put it in C for now, but I'm tempted to move it down to D. Obviously, like I said, I gave it a decent review, and it's really hard when issues show up months down the line that you can't necessarily tell as a reviewer. I can't use everything for many, many months. The GK61, however, is a brilliant keyboard. That's going straight into A. Could put it in S. I think it is a really, really good keyboard. Loads of people love it, and I can see why. You get the Hotswap, you get potentially optical switches like mine had, and I think overall you can get a wireless version. You can get so many different versions. You've got so much customization, and I think it's just a really nice entry into these good mechanical keyboards. And I think that's what a lot of these 60% keyboards here do. They let you get into the mechanical keyboard space and let you have some customization without having to spend lots of money on the enthusiast custom building. So I think the GK61 is a really good keyboard for that. The SK64 is basically the same keyboard with a few extra keys. I guess it goes in the same category then. I did like it. I liked the fact that it has a delete key. That made a big thing for me. That made it nicer to use. I need the delete key, I need the arrow keys, I need some extra buttons to use for my media and stuff, and using the function layer just isn't good enough. It's too much hassle. I currently use a TKL 10 keyless keyboard, and that's what I'll continue to use. So I think, however, I do think the SK64 was a bit more money than the GK61, and for most people it's not going to do anything more whatsoever. So based on that, which my memory could be wrong on the price, I'm going to put it in B tier, because I think for most people you're just going to be happier with the GK61 for less money. The AN Pro 2 is another loved keyboard like the GK61. All the things I just said about the GK61 apply to the AN Pro 2. However, I do think the AN Pro 2 is maybe just another step above. I think I'm gonna put it in S tier. I thought it was a really cool keyboard. It's really well built, and it was just a pleasure to use. I honestly can't say if it's that much better than the GK61, so I'm not sure whether S tier is quite the right place for it. Maybe they'd both be somewhere in between, but I think I'm going to put it in there for now, but let me know what you think in the comments. The K MK61 was another keyboard like the GK61. It's pretty much the same keyboard. Mine came with some different keycaps, some pudding keycaps, and they did look really cool. I think it obviously is nowhere near as popular because it's not such a big brand, but I think it's almost the same keyboard, so I'm also going to put that in A tier. I think it's just another good way to get into mechanical keyboards. And now we get into some more interesting ones. So obviously I put the Synosa V2 in B tier. The Synosa Lite didn't get a great review from me, and honestly I stand by that. My conclusion of the review was, if you already have any keyboard whatsoever, it's not worth buying. It really offers nothing more than your standard black membrane keyboard. It's not going to make you any better at gaming. It's not going to give you a much better typing experience, and you're honestly much better off, like I said, unless you've got no keyboard whatsoever, you're much better off just saving up until you can get something like, even if you're happy with a 60%, you can get the GK61 for like $10, $15 more. It's worth just waiting and saving up. If you've got a keyboard that works, then just keep that. Maybe I should have made a lower tier for it, but then I get all the Razer fans and they're getting angry at me, so I'll just leave it in D tier and hopefully that doesn't upset you too much. Stocky 1.3 was the most recent keyboard review on my channel. I really need to get reviewing some more keyboards. This was a really good keyboard. It's the most expensive keyboard I've ever reviewed. Everything about it was really good and it felt really high quality. I did at one point have some issues after using it a few months after on my review, where it wasn't registering some key presses when I was pressing multiple keys at once. I think that got fixed by a firmware update, so I kind of let it slide with that. I think I'm going to put it in A tier. I think it's quite expensive ultimately for what it is. I don't think I can quite justify it being S tier. Maybe you're going to disagree with me for the people who can really appreciate all these extra things that these expensive keyboards have, but for me, I don't think it's quite worth the extra money. And finally, a keyboard I've not yet reviewed on my channel, but has been my main keyboard for at least 2 years now, and that's the glorious GMMK. I bought it as a bare bones, put my own switches in. It originally had Gateron Blacks in it. It now has some KL Jades in it, which are quite a heavy clicky switch. I've really enjoyed using it. I think for its price and the amount of customizability you get, I think it's a really good keyboard. I've personally been using it for a couple of years. You know, I'm not a keyboard enthusiast like some people. I don't know what makes a keyboard perfect, but I've really enjoyed using it. The customization of ease of use of it has been really good. So for that reason, I'm going to finish off this tier list by putting GMMK in S tier. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another tier list, I made a mouse one a long time ago, but there'll be something new coming soon. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.